welcome to The Tread. My name is Dallas and I'm the parent of two autistic boys. Ash and Jet were diagnosed with autism when they were 2.5. They are now 15. So I've been to a lot of therapy sessions over the years. So today I'm going to talk to you about my experiences with those therapies. Leaping Lizards is a program that my sons did when they were 3 years old. It focuses a lot on gross and fine motor skills, spatial awareness, auditory and visual skills, coordination and balance. These were things that the boys really struggled with, and Leaping Lizards focused on building those skills. It was a really helpful program, run by a pair of caring and very passionate ladies. It's still running today. Not long after diagnosis, Ash and Jet started to see a speech therapist. I knew very little about what a speech therapist did. I thought that after 6 or 12 months working with a therapist that the boys would begin to speak and slowly start talking to the same level as a neurotypical child. This didn't quite happen. Ash is still non-verbal but uses a communication device to talk to us. Jet is able to speak but mainly repeats words and phrases. He uses 1 to 2 word sentences like want cracker, help, or the name of his favourite TV show. While therapy sessions were very beneficial to begin with, Ash doesn't actually attend therapy sessions at the moment. It's more important that the people in regular contact with him, such as support workers, are skilled in how to use Prolo with him in his everyday life. So they do regular training with his speech therapist. Jet is still going to speech therapy sessions at the moment. We're trying to get him to use the Prolo to communicate with, but it's really challenging because he would rather just spell words on it rather than talk to us. We'll keep working on it. I think the term speech therapy is a bit misleading. I think it should be called communication therapy because one of the main goals of the therapist is to help the child find a way to communicate to those around them. This may not always be verbal. It may be using a communication device, laminated cards, gestures, or keyword signs. As parents, we know our kids really well, and most of the time we can guess what they're trying to tell us. But we know that there's so much more going on that they would love to tell us. This is why speech therapy is so important. We all have the right to have our own voice and to be heard. Also, we can't be with our child all the time. And that's why it's so important that we help them find a means to communicate to people outside our family. When it was first recommended that the boys do OT, I really had no idea what an OT did. I thought it was something to do with getting people back to work. Obviously, it has a lot broader meaning than that. I think the best way to describe it is occupational is anything that occupies you in your day-to-day life, be it mundane or meaningful. And therapy is the intervention, assessment, recovery, or maintaining of those everyday skills. As with speech therapy, I really didn't know what to expect with OT. I really struggled in understanding how it related to my boys, especially when the therapist would ask, "What are your goals for the boys?" I was like, I don't know, help them do things that other kids can do? Most OTs are able to get an idea of where the child is developmentally and what they need to focus on just from watching them play. A big part of OT is sensory processing disorder. This is where a child's brain is unable to process sensory input effectively, making it hard for them to focus, concentrate, and assess their environment. Ash and Jet first accessed speech and OT when they were about 3 years old. They attended a clinic that used a very play-based method called DIR floor time. Check out my links for more information on this. At the moment, we're taking a break from OT because whenever the therapist would come to our home, the boys would protest and be very resistant to doing the activities she had planned for them. Well, they are teenagers, so I'm focusing on weaving OT into their everyday routines. This was basically OT but in the water, also combined with water safety and some swimming lessons. Ash and Jet did this for about 8 years on and off, since they were 3. They now love going swimming and can swim independently in deep water. The therapist used similar methods as she would have in a clinic setting. Both boys find it really calming and were able to engage with their therapist in a much more meaningful way. A lot of kids on the spectrum really struggle with mainstream swimming lessons, and they miss out on this valuable skill, both from a water safety perspective and a sensory regulation. Sadly, there are too few therapists that offer this service, so if you are or know someone that has taught swimming and is studying to be an OT, I can highly recommend this as a career pathway. Music therapy is the clinical use of music to accomplish individualized goals such as reducing stress, improving mood, and self-expression. Ash and Jet really liked music, so when they were younger, I looked into music therapy. I really didn't know much about it. I had in mind the stereotype of a guitar-wielding person singing Kumbaya. The first one we tried was a bit like that. But then through someone's recommendation, we found a really good one. The boys did it for about 2 years when they were 9. It focused on joint attention, which is really important between two people when communicating. They did activities such as playing instruments, sensory activities, and singing. As you can see in the following clip, the therapist would pause at certain words in the song, and Ash would make a noise or an approximation of a word. About the world so high. The therapist would also put coloured dots on the keys of a keyboard. She would hold up the corresponding coloured card, and Ash would play the note on the keyboard.
Orange, orange, yellow, green. Ah, well done. That's it. No.
It was one of the few times that I've seen him make word-like sounds. I really wish we could have continued with that therapy. I've tried to engage with music therapy again, but Ash is at the stage where if he really doesn't want to do something, it's a losing battle. The behavioural therapist who works with our family started out as an RDI consultant. This type of therapy is big in America. Have a look on my page for links to more information about this. It involved a lot of parent coaching with some sessions with the boys. I would say one of the main benefits of the RDI is it shows parents how to engage with their children in a more naturalistic way through everyday routines. Who better to do the therapy than the parents who know them the best and who spend the most time with them? We talk about everything from chores, play skills, developmental stages, and going out in the community. We then come up with strategies and try to implement them. This is then followed up with discussions on what the progress the boys made. We'll then talk about what worked well and what I could try next time. Over the years, it has morphed from the RDI method to a more behavioural type therapy, but still with an emphasis on parent coaching. I meet on Zoom once or twice a fortnight to discuss the challenges I'm having with the boys. The therapist has had many years of experience, and she's been such a great support for our family. Sometimes it looks like the therapist is just playing or telling you how to play, but they are actually doing a lot more. Observing and assessing, waiting for the child to process and reference them, modelling, making sure their sensory system is not overloaded, and all the time altering the way in which they engage with the child. And as for telling us how to play with our children, listen and observe. The way you play with an autistic child is so much different to the way that you would play with a neurotypical child. I remember playing in a session with Jet, and the therapist was telling me when to wait and then when to jump into the game, showing me how important it was to give him time to process and initiate what's happening next. It helped a lot in how I played with the boys and also how I interact with them today. It takes time. In those first 2 to 3 years, I really struggled to see many improvements. Kids on the spectrum need a lot more time to process things, so learning a new skill or task takes many repetitions. At first, you may wonder, why on earth am I paying so much money for a therapist to play blocks with my child? I felt like that. But remember, These therapists have got a lot of experience and they do know what they're doing. Despite these reservations, I made sure the boys attended regularly. And even though I struggled to see the progress, looking back over 4, 6 or even 10 years, I could see that over time, these therapies have hugely contributed to where the boys are today. And I'm so glad I persevered. There might be homework or encouragement to do the therapy at home with your child, but don't feel so pressurized that it stresses you out. That's not the right place to come from. Do it when you feel that you are able to enjoy the time you spend with a child. Discuss with the child's therapist ways that you can include the therapy into their everyday routine. You don't want to be trying to add more to do in your already busy life. If you're struggling to do the therapy at home with your child, maybe take along one of your support workers to the therapy session, and they can learn how to do the therapy with your child during one of their shifts. Or you could look into getting a therapy assistant. These are often students who are studying to become a therapist and just want some experience in their field. Also, don't feel guilty if you don't feel you're able to do the therapy with your child. Your most important job is to be their parent. No one else can do that. It's also good if a child is able to learn to interact with other people so that they can generalize these skills with different people. I also use some of the therapy sessions as training for our support workers so that they can learn to integrate the therapy into the daily routine. I will also take video footage of the support workers interacting with the boys. I then share it with the behavioural therapist so she can chat to them about how to improve their interactions with the boys. I also like to make time to talk to the therapists about the boys' goals and progress without them there. It is so hard to have a meaningful conversation while you're in a session with your child. Like a lot of things in raising a child on the spectrum, therapies can be overwhelming. Look at how often you're taking your child to therapy sessions. Could you change from weekly to fortnightly sessions? Maybe use 1 week for training for your support workers and the other week for your child. Give yourself more time to practice the things that your child did in therapy. And most importantly, if you're feeling overwhelmed, talk to your child's therapist. They are there for the child and for you. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please feel free to make a comment and check out my other videos. Bye!